So, you want to own a casino. Let's talk about it. A casino can lose money on almost every single table game in the building and still post one of the highest profit margins in all of hospitality. That's not a trick of accounting, it's the entire business model working exactly as designed. Walk onto a casino floor and it looks like chaos: dice, cards, spinning wheels, thousands of small individual bets flying in every direction. Underneath that chaos sits one of the most mathematically precise, tightly engineered business models in existence, one where the outcome of any single hand or spin is genuinely uncertain. But the outcome of the business as a whole is about as close to guaranteed as commerce gets. So if the house doesn't actually know who's going to win the next hand of blackjack, how can a casino possibly know, with near certainty, how much money it's going to make this year? The answer starts with a concept that's easy to state and genuinely counterintuitive to feel: the house edge. Every game on a casino floor is mathematically structured so that over a large enough number of bets, the casino retains a small built in percentage of everything wagered. On something like American roulette, that edge sits at just over 5%. On blackjack, played with optimal strategy, it can be under 1%. On slot machines, it varies considerably by machine and jurisdiction, but is typically in the range of a few percent up to around 10% or more. None of these numbers mean the casino wins 5% of individual hands or that any specific player is guaranteed to lose. It means that across millions of individual bets, the law of large numbers takes over, and the small edge on each wager compounds into a highly predictable, stable revenue stream for the house, even though any single guest on any single night might walk away significantly ahead. This is the single most important idea in the entire industry, because it explains why a casino doesn't need to worry about a lucky night at one table the way a small business owner might worry about a single bad transaction. Individual variance is enormous. Aggregate outcome across the whole floor over an entire year is remarkably stable and forecastable, which is precisely why casinos can plan budgets, pay dividends, and service enormous debt loads with a level of financial confidence that would be reckless in almost any other business built on individually uncertain outcomes. Building a large casino resort in the first place is an extraordinary capital undertaking, arguably rivaling theme parks and airports for sheer scale of investment. A major integrated resort, particularly the kind found in destinations like Las Vegas or Macau, can cost well into the billions of dollars once gaming floors, hotel towers, convention space, restaurants, entertainment venues, and retail are all included. And even a mid-sized regional casino without an attached resort still typically represents an investment running into the hundreds of millions. On top of construction, operators must secure a gaming license from the relevant regulatory authority, a process that can take years, involves extensive background checks and financial disclosure, and often comes with significant application and ongoing licensing fees that vary enormously by jurisdiction. Add the cost of gaming equipment itself: thousands of slot machines, table games, and the surveillance and security infrastructure required to monitor them continuously, along with staff recruitment and training across dealers, security, hospitality, and compliance roles, and the entry cost to this industry is firmly in the same league as the largest capital projects in hospitality. Once open, a casino's revenue comes from a combination of streams that behave quite differently from one another, and understanding the split between them explains a lot about how the modern industry actually operates. Table games, blackjack, roulette, baccarat, poker, and others generate revenue through that house edge described earlier, but they're relatively labor and space intensive per dollar wagered, since each table needs a dealer, limited seating, and careful supervision. Slot machines and electronic gaming, by contrast, require comparatively little labor once installed, can run continuously with minimal staff oversight, and for many major casino operators now generate the majority of total gaming revenue precisely because of how efficiently they convert floor space and low staffing into steady returns. Beyond the gaming floor itself, what the industry calls non-gaming revenue has become an increasingly significant part of the modern casino business, especially at the largest integrated resorts. Hotel rooms, restaurants, nightclubs, spas, retail, and live entertainment all generate revenue in their own right, and increasingly, some of the largest operators actively use these amenities not merely as profit centers, but as tools to extend guest stays and increase overall spending across the entire visit. A guest who comes for a headline concert or a well-regarded restaurant and stays in an on-site hotel room is a guest spending significantly more across their visit than one who simply walks in, plays for an hour, and leaves, which is precisely why so much recent investment in major resort casinos has gone into entertainment, dining, and hospitality rather than purely expanding the gaming floor itself. A concept unique to this industry and central to understanding its economics, particularly at the higher end, is comping. Complimentary rooms, meals, and entertainment given to valued players in exchange for their gaming activity. Casinos track player spending closely through loyalty programs and dedicated hosts, and strategically give back a portion of that value in free rooms, meals, or show tickets, precisely because the expected value of a high-spending player's continued play over that player's relationship with the property comfortably exceeds the cost of what's being given away. It's not generosity in the conventional sense, it's a calculated retention cost, not dissimilar to a loyalty program in any other industry, just calibrated against a house edge rather than a subscription fee. Against all of this revenue sits a genuinely heavy cost structure. Labor is a major expense, since dealers, pit bosses, surveillance staff, hospitality workers, and security personnel are all required in significant numbers, often around the clock, since many casinos operate 24 hours a day. Regulatory compliance is a continuous and substantial cost of its own, covering licensing fees, anti-money laundering monitoring, and the extensive surveillance and reporting infrastructure required to satisfy gaming regulators whose standards are typically far stricter than in most other hospitality businesses. Gaming taxes, levied by state, provincial, or national governments on gross gaming revenue, are often one of the largest single cost lines a casino faces, and rates vary enormously between jurisdictions, from relatively modest percentages in some markets to considerably higher rates in others, which materially affects where operators choose to invest and how profitable an otherwise identical casino can be, depending purely on where it's located. Marketing, particularly the cost of attracting and retaining high-value players through hosted relationships and loyalty programs, is a significant ongoing expense, alongside utilities for buildings that run continuously, insurance, and the maintenance and periodic replacement of gaming equipment, since slot machines and electronic systems require regular refreshing to stay competitive and compliant. This combination of built-in mathematical edge, high fixed costs, heavy taxation, and continuous capital reinvestment explains why casino operating margins, while healthy, aren't quite as extreme as the underlying house edge alone might suggest to an outsider. Much of what the house edge generates is absorbed by exactly the cost structure just described, particularly gaming taxes, which in high-tax jurisdictions can take a very substantial share of gross gaming revenue before the operator sees a cent of profit. The risks facing this industry are significant and in several respects unusually acute compared to other hospitality businesses. Regulatory risk sits at the very top of the list, since a casino's entire ability to operate depends on maintaining its gaming license, and any serious compliance failure can result in fines, license suspension, or, in extreme cases, permanent closure. Economic downturns hit discretionary entertainment spending hard, and casino visitation, particularly involving travel to a destination resort, is about as discretionary as spending gets. Increasing competition, both from newly licensed casinos in nearby jurisdictions and from online and mobile gambling platforms, has fragmented what was once a far more geographically captive customer base. Credit risk from high-value players' extended gaming credit can be substantial if that credit isn't repaid. And perhaps most significantly for the industry's long-term reputation and regulatory standing, responsible gambling concerns and the risk of problem gambling among a small but significant share of players represent both a genuine social issue and an increasing area of regulatory scrutiny, with many jurisdictions now requiring operators to fund treatment programs, enforce spending limits, and maintain self-exclusion systems as a condition of their license. To make the economics tangible, consider a simplified, illustrative example of a mid-sized regional casino, not a real operator, purely to demonstrate how the numbers might realistically flow. Imagine annual gross gaming revenue, the total amount wagered minus what's paid back out in winnings, of around $200 million, combined with non-gaming revenue from hotel, food, and entertainment of a further $50 million. After gaming taxes, which might take somewhere between 15 and 40% of gross gaming revenue depending heavily on the jurisdiction, and after labor, marketing, and operating costs across the whole property, the operator might realistically retain a net profit margin somewhere in the region of 10 to 20% of total revenue, though this figure varies enormously by tax jurisdiction, property scale, and how much of the revenue mix comes from lower cost, high margin electronic gaming versus labor intensive table games. This is an illustrative composite only, built to show the general shape of the economics, not a claim about any specific casino or jurisdiction. Looking ahead, the industry continues to shift in a few clear directions. Online and mobile gambling, legalized in an increasing number of jurisdictions over recent years, represents both a genuine threat to physical casino visitation and, for operators who've secured online licenses of their own, a meaningful new revenue channel with a dramatically lower fixed cost base than a physical property. Integrated resorts continue to lean further into non-gaming revenue, treating entertainment, dining, and hospitality not as an afterthought to the gaming floor, but as central pillars of the modern casino business model. Data-driven player tracking and loyalty systems are becoming increasingly sophisticated, allowing operators to calibrate comping and marketing spend with far greater precision than the more instinct-driven host relationships of previous decades. And regulatory frameworks around responsible gambling continue to tighten in many major markets, adding compliance costs, but also, many operators would argue, supporting the industry's long-term social license to operate. None of this suggests the traditional casino model is disappearing. It suggests an industry increasingly split between enormous integrated resorts capable of monetizing an entire guest visit across gaming, hospitality, and entertainment simultaneously, and a wider, more fragmented tier of regional and online operators competing on convenience, tax jurisdiction, and increasingly thin margins. So is owning a casino actually a good business? The honest answer is that done properly, it can be one of the most consistently profitable models in hospitality precisely because it's built on a mathematical edge rather than hope. But it demands enormous upfront capital, operates under some of the strictest regulatory scrutiny of any industry, carries meaningful tax and compliance costs that vary dramatically by jurisdiction, and requires real discipline in balancing gaming revenue against the social responsibilities that come with running a business whose product is, for a small number of customers, genuinely capable of causing serious harm. Because in the end, nobody in this industry is really betting against the customer hand by hand, night by night. They're betting on mathematics, the same handful of percentage points repeated often enough for long enough to turn genuine uncertainty on the floor into remarkable certainty on the balance sheet.